Researchers has discovered some lending practices that could cause the Chancellor concern. Since the crash, the authorities have taken steps to outlaw reckless loans, where buyers don't need proof of income. But Stephen, a mortgage advisor who used to work for one of the big estate agencies, told us the pressure to hit mortgage targets was again leading to bad practice.
You're expected to work 12-hour days. If you're not hitting your target, you're expected to work weekends.
Do you think the pressure of meeting these targets, meant that some people were inclined to bend the rules?
Yeah, definitely. That was the whole point. People bent the rules because they were so worried about hitting the targets.
Stephen claimed he'd witnessed advisors suggesting loans to homebuyers which were only supposed to be available for rental properties, avoiding the need for buyers to prove their income.
So some consultants that I knew, if they weren't able to get a residential mortgage, would not directly say to the client, but they would imply that there's an option of a buy-to-let mortgage that doesn't need a minimum income.
Right, but they wouldn't have to rent it out when they bought it.
That's what's meant to happen. That's what the lender is aware that is happening, but they're what they call backdoor buy-to-lets. So there would be a lot of people that would decide to say to them, you can just live in the property once the mortgage is completed.
Which has 1,300 branches across the UK. Posing as a freelancer with little salary history, he was looking for a £300,000 property, but lacked the paperwork to prove he had the funds. The scenario he'd set out meant it was highly unlikely he was ever going to be offered a residential mortgage.
If we are really stuck, would you be willing to have a look at purchasing this property on a buy-to-let basis?
Yeah, I mean, that could be interesting.
We have some buy-to-let mortgages that are on par with residential rates.
Okay.
However, what I would need to say on the applications is that you won't be living there, it will be to rent out, which obviously will be a bit of a fib, but it's just kind of bending the rules a little bit.
Okay.
Basically, if we get a no when I'm exploring our kind of what we can and can't do in regards to residential mortgage, it's not kind of the end of the road. There's another road we can go down.
Meanwhile, our researcher went back to follow up with the mortgage advisor. Had he managed to find him a loan?
The ones that I thought would be a little bit more lenient towards your situation, the ones that were okay with it weren't happy with the gap that you had.
Yeah.
The ones that were happy with the gap that you had didn't like the fact that you didn't go back to your old job, that you started self-employed. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. It seems like it might be quite difficult to place this mortgage as a residential basis, and we may start having to, remember what I said about the buy-to-let.
Yeah.
It may have, if you're desperate to get a property, that might be the way forward.
Okay.
They discussed how this might work and what the lender might want to know.
If you're living in it, I've never known any lender to refuse someone who's decided to move into the buy-to-let property.
So if it's called, because it's called buy-to-let, but no one actually from any of the angles really bothered about it, because the lender's not bothered about that, the fact that you're not letting it out.
Yeah, regardless, even if you were going to rent it out and it was empty, they'd still expect the monthly payments, and that's all they're interested in.
Right, okay.
The monthly payments being made.
I have to say, I'm really quite almost staggered that this sort of thing might still be going on, because I thought we'd seen the last of misleading selling. The mortgage market has tightened up quite considerably on this, and I would have thought that the lending institutions involved or who possibly don't know about this might have something to say.
That's shocking to hear that. If you are not truthful in your application form, you are committing mortgage fraud, which is a criminal offence, and there could be far-reaching implications of doing that.
Isn't something going wrong with the pressure to meet those targets, and commission forces them to offer buyers buy-to-let mortgages?
It's something that I think the regulator would be very keen to investigate further, and certainly if the firms that these advisors work for were aware this was going on, I think that they take action in which to stop that happening.
With the government's Help to Buy scheme providing more work for estate agents and mortgage advisors, is it a licence for those in the property business to be ever more creative?